Man, those guys at Bambu Lab are on a roll. They have 2 new printers in the last month, and they just released this killer update to Bambu Studio, bringing it to version 1.8. Here's the feature list. I printed it out so I could go through it to talk to you about it. It's 21 pages long. There are some amazing things that are in here, and there's some things that are going to change the whole way that I work with 3D printers. Bambu Studio already lets you print to some printers that are not Bambu Lab printers, but there's not a lot of choices in there, and now they are changing that. You can just create a new printer just like you do in other slicers, and you can give that the settings for the printer, and then they're available underneath the user presets in Bambu Studio. That means if a company comes out with a new printer and they don't have a profile available for it yet, Elegoo Neptune 4, excuse me, then you'll be able to create it directly inside of Bambu Studio. You'll also be able to make custom filaments, which is huge for me because I use a lot of filaments that are not in Bambu Studio. Bambu Studio has a good list of filaments. They've got Overture and a bunch of other ones, but they don't have the filament that I use, which is a nice Elegoo PLA and a PLA+. The other issue there is if you're using the AMS system when you're printing, then it's really hard to tell the AMS system what filament is in there if they're all called generic PLA. Okay, so now you can create new filaments and you can create new printers, but the coolest thing about this is you can share those. You can import and export different printer profiles and different filament profiles for use in Bambu Studio, which means that people will be able to tweak the settings and the filaments and everything they do with the printer and then share it between each other. That is great. So I have a P1S and I have an A1 Mini sitting right next to each other, and I can control them both in Bambu Studio. The problem is when I switch from one to another and I change the bed size, suddenly the print goes off to the side because the bed got smaller and it doesn't rearrange where the print is on the bed. Now, if you switch between different size printers, it will automatically recenter that plate onto the bed so you don't have to drag things around from scratch. That one is really cool. The next one that they've added comes right out of Prusa, and it's one of my favorite things about Prusa Slicer, which is the ability to have several new joins for when you cut a print. Up to now, you could do a dowel, you could do a peg, and they're both great, but Prusa added some new things, including snap connectors and dovetails. The snap connector allows you to put 2 pieces together like you're assembling a toy, and it's much better than a peg or a dowel. And then there's a dovetail cut function that allows you to slide the 2 pieces together. The thing that is really cool for me in this section of improvements is support for detecting if the nozzle is the correct type for what you're printing. So Bambu Studio will now check to see if the hardness of the nozzle is correct for what you're printing and if the diameter is correct. The next one is a little one, but it's about something that drives me crazy, which is if you have a time lapse on the A1 or the P1 series and you want to get to that, you have to take the micro SD card out of the printer, take it to your machine, insert it, and then download those files. Well, as of the next firmware update they're going to do, you can now just browse those directly in Studio. And so if you did a time lapse in your A1 Mini or your A1 or your P1, you can access those and export them right from the Studio. This next one they're billing is an improvement, but it's going to be a huge quality of life update for me. I print with black filament a lot, and when you put a black model in Bambu Studio, it's almost impossible to see any of the details. As a result, I've programmed black to be another color. In my case, I use red as the color for black because I don't really print with red. But now it actually displays black with a little bit of contrast, so when I'm cutting something or painting something, I can actually see what I'm working with, and that is huge. It's more huge because you can combine this with the filament presets, and so I can make a black filament preset. Then of course with this update I can also save the filament as a custom filament update. Now I can have different filament presets and I can display them so I can actually see them and just leave them black. Another thing that got its start in Prusa Slicer is the ability to do a special kind of tree support called organic. That's what Prusa uses, and I find a lot of times it's a much better support than the standard tree support. This is the one that saved me today. You can now do an automatic bed type. The slicing software will now remember what bed type you used last the next time you go back to that printer or that profile. Now when you're setting up a printer and you're setting up the bed size, you can tell what the best object position is. It's the part of the bed that you want things to print on, and it will remember that when you're arranging files and put everything there first. And it also now allows for more filaments of different types to be put on a plate if it auto arranges those filament pieces for you. But if you're doing a couple different materials like ABS and TPU, you can put them both on a plate now without getting a warning that it won't work. Then there's just a couple more I'll go over quickly. You can now edit plate names in the object list, and you can adjust the ironing angle between the supports and the print itself. They've added daily tips to the slicing dialog box. You can collapse it and not have to see it, but it doesn't hurt to see a tip every day. Finally, they've added support for the K series of printers from Creality. Is there anything that you caught that I didn't explain properly or you know more about? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you've got a Bambu printer and you've upgraded to this version of the software, is there anything that is not working properly? And is there anything that you're using that you're particularly happy is there? And if you have any presets for any printers or filaments you made, let me know in the comments below. I will try and round those all up and put them all in another video. That's the update notes for Dave Tries This. I'm David Schloss, and as always, thanks so much for giving this a try.